Anime fans are built different. We don't just watch stories, we survive them. One moment, you're vibing with colorful characters, epic themes, and emotional buildup. And the next, the show pulls the rug out from under you and stomps on your soul. Plot twists so wild they break the internet. Revelations so unhinged they turn fandoms upside down. Scenes that live rent-free in our heads years later. These aren't just shocking moments, they're collective breakdowns. The kind that spark endless debates, meme floods, theory spirals, and pure disbelief. Moments where timelines reset, characters die in ways we weren't ready for, or the story goes so far off the rails that fans had to pause the episode just to breathe. Some of these scenes changed how anime was talked about forever. Others crossed lines no one thought would be crossed. And a few made viewers question everything they thought they knew about the story. Fair warning. Spoilers are unavoidable, emotions will be triggered, and sanity may not survive. These are the anime moments that sent fans into absolute hysteria. 10. Send in the clones. Astra Lost in Space. At first glance, Astra Lost in Space looks like a classic sci-fi survival story. A group of teens on what's supposed to be a routine space camp suddenly find themselves stranded light years from home. They commandeer a ship, hop between dangerous planets, and learn to rely on each other just to stay alive. Stressful? Absolutely. Shocking? Not yet. Then the anime pulls the pin. As the crew slowly uncovers the truth about their pasts, the story detonates one of the most unhinged twists modern anime has delivered. The kids aren't just unlucky students caught in a cosmic accident, they're clones. Every single one of them. Their parents aren't parents at all, but original versions of themselves who created clones as backup bodies. And it gets worse. Their entire existence was planned so that, once the originals aged, their minds could be transplanted into these younger bodies. The kids weren't meant to live full lives. They were spare parts. For fans, this revelation hit like a meteor. The story instantly shifted from hopeful survival to existential horror. Every bonding moment, every memory, every emotional struggle was suddenly reframed. These characters weren't just fighting to get home, they were fighting for the right to exist at all. What made the twist even more brutal was the timing. By the time the truth is revealed, viewers are deeply attached to the crew. We've laughed with them, feared for them, and watched them grow. Finding out they were manufactured for replacement felt like a personal betrayal. Anime fans lost it. Number 9. Archer's True Identity. Fate, Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works. The Fate franchise is infamous for complexity. Multiple timelines, alternate routes, parallel worlds, and enough lore to drown newcomers. Even so, Unlimited Blade Works managed to deliver a reveal so wild that it permanently scarred the fandom. Enter Archer. From the moment he appears, Archer radiates mystery. Red coat, dual blades, sarcastic attitude. He feels powerful, experienced, and slightly unhinged, the kind of servant you don't mess with. Naturally, fans assumed he was some legendary hero pulled from myth or history, just like most servants in the series. That assumption was very, very wrong. When Archer's true identity is revealed, the internet collectively imploded. He isn't a famous hero at all. He's Shiru Emiya, the same protagonist we've been following, from a possible future where his ideals broke him. A Shiru who kept trying to save everyone. A Shiru who failed. A Shiru who grew cynical, bitter, and furious at the ideals that once defined him. Suddenly, Archer's hostility toward Shiru makes horrifying sense. He isn't just an antagonist, he's self-hatred given form. A walking contradiction who despises his past self for believing in impossible ideals. Fans were not ready. This wasn't just a plot twist, it was an emotional ambush. 8. When the antibodies attacked, Eureka 7. For most of its runtime, Eureka 7 lulls you into a strange sense of emotional safety. Yes, there's war. Yes, there's political tension and ethically questionable science, but at its core, the series feels hopeful, almost gentle. It's about love, understanding, and finding harmony with something fundamentally alien. Then the scub coral decides it's had enough. Up until this moment, the scub coral is treated like a mysterious life form, strange, sentient, but not overtly malicious. Humanity studies it, experiments on it, and exploits it, believing it can be controlled. The danger feels abstract, distant, something to think about later. That illusion dies violently. When the scub coral releases its antibodies, Eureka 7 suddenly transforms into full-blown horror. Without warning, enormous one-eyed entities manifest and descend upon a nearby city. They don't negotiate, they don't hesitate, they eradicate. What makes this scene so devastating isn't just the destruction, it's the framing. The camera doesn't shy away. We watch buildings collapse, civilians are crushed, people are smashed apart mid-scream. There's no heroic last stand, no dramatic music swelling to reassure the audience, just chaos, panic, and death delivered with horrifying indifference. And then comes the moment that broke viewers. A mother, realizing there is no escape, smothers her own child. Not out of cruelty, out of mercy. The implication is unbearable. A faster, quieter death is kinder than what the antibodies will do. That single act reframes the entire attack. This isn't an action sequence, it's an extinction event. Fans were completely blindsided. This wasn't the kind of anime where you expected mass civilian slaughter shown so explicitly. Social media lit up with disbelief. 7. The Chimera Incident, Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood. There are anime scenes that shock you, and then there are scenes that permanently damage you. The Chimera Incident in Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood is the latter. Early in the series, Edward and Alphonse Elric are still relatively optimistic. They believe that while the world is cruel, it's ultimately governed by rules that make sense. Alchemy has limits, but those limits feel fair. Right and wrong still seem distinguishable. Then they meet Sho Tucker. At first, Tucker appears harmless, a timid state alchemist struggling to keep his certification. He lives quietly with his young daughter, Nina, and her dog, Alexander. The household feels warm, safe. A rare pocket of normalcy in a brutal world. That safety is a lie. When Tucker reveals the secret behind his past research, the floor drops out from under the audience. Years earlier, he created a talking chimera using his wife. Now, facing the loss of his license again, he does it a second time. This time, with his daughter. Nina and Alexander are fused together into a single broken creature. One that can still speak. One that still recognizes Edward. One that asks why it hurts. That question echoes forever. Fans were not prepared for this. The scene doesn't rely on gore or spectacle, it relies on implication. On emotional devastation. On the realization that a father willingly destroyed his own child for professional survival. Edward's breakdown mirrors the audience's. Up until this point, homunculi and villains felt like the ultimate evil. The Chimera Incident proves something far worse. Human cruelty doesn't need monsters. It only needs desperation and rationalization. 6. Shibuya gets flattened, Jujutsu Kaisen. Before Shibuya, Jujutsu Kaisen was already brutal. Characters died. Blood spilled. Stakes were high. But there was still an unspoken belief among fans that the story had limits, that some lines wouldn't be crossed. Shibuya erased that belief completely. The arc begins with tension rather than chaos. Crowded streets, civilians everywhere, curses moving in the shadows. It feels dangerous, but manageable. Until Sukuna enters the equation. Sukuna has always been framed as evil incarnate, a calamity rather than a character. Even surrounded by monsters like Mahito, he stands apart. Not because he's louder or crueler, but because he simply does not care. Human life means nothing to him. Not strategically, not emotionally, at all. When Sukuna fully manifests during the Shibuya incident, the anime stops pretending this is a battle arc. What follows is mass slaughter. His domain expansion, malevolent shrine, is unleashed without containment. No barrier, no protection. Just an indiscriminate kill zone spanning city blocks. Buildings are carved apart. Streets are erased. And most horrifying of all, civilians are slaughtered by the hundreds without ever knowing why. There's no dramatic focus on individual deaths. That's the point. People don't get last words, they don't get heroic framing, they're simply erased, because they happen to exist near Sukuna. The camera pulls back and lets the destruction speak for itself, emphasizing scale over sentiment. Fans watching weekly were in disbelief. This wasn't collateral damage hinted at off-screen. This was on-screen urban genocide. A shonen anime openly showing a city being butchered by one character's power with zero narrative cushioning. And Sukuna isn't even finished. The fight against Mahoraga only escalates the carnage. Every attack widens the death toll. By the time the dust settles, Shibuya is unrecognizable, physically and emotionally. The series crosses a point of no return. The real gut punch comes afterward. Yuji is forced to confront the aftermath. He didn't pull the trigger, but Sukuna used his body. The weight of indirect guilt crushes him, and by extension, the audience. This isn't just spectacle, it's trauma baked directly into the protagonist. Anime fans spiraled. Some praised the arc as peak fiction, others were genuinely shaken by how far it went. Reaction videos froze. Comment sections filled with variations of, "What did I just watch?" Shibuya didn't just raise the stakes, it destroyed the board. From that moment on, Jujutsu Kaisen stopped being a dark shonen and became something far colder, a story where power doesn't come with mercy, and survival is never guaranteed. Number 5. Welcome back. Orb, on the movements of the earth. If Orb, on the movements of the earth has taught readers anything, it's this: do not get comfortable. From the beginning, the story presents itself as cerebral and philosophical, a historical narrative about forbidden knowledge, scientific truth, and the cost of challenging authority. It's intense, but grounded, until it does something that made fans lose their minds. Early on, the series delivers its first shock by killing Rafal, the original protagonist. Fans barely had time to process that loss before the story moved forward, shifting focus to new characters and new perspectives. Painful, yes, but manageable. Then comes the welcome back moment. When Rafal suddenly reappears in the presence of Albert, the protagonist of a later chapter, readers froze. He's there, alive, speaking, existing, after everything we were told. Confusion exploded instantly. At first, fans assumed a twist involving survival, deception, or hidden timelines. But Orb doesn't do easy answers. Instead, it invites something far more unsettling: the possibility that much of what we've seen isn't literal reality at all. The prevailing interpretation sent the fandom into meltdown. What if everything up to this point was a projection of Albert's mind? A philosophical reconstruction where characters represent aspects of belief, doubt, fear, and conviction. What if Rafal never returned, because he never truly left? That single scene destabilized the entire narrative. Fans began re-examining every chapter, every conversation, every death. Forums filled with essays, diagrams, and arguments about what was real and what wasn't. Was history itself being questioned? Was the story about science, or about how humans cope with truth? What made this moment hysterical wasn't shock value, it was uncertainty. Unlike other twists that explain themselves later, Orb refuses to confirm or deny. The ambiguity is intentional. The story weaponizes doubt and forces readers to sit with it. Some loved it, some hated it, everyone talked about it. The boldness of bringing back a dead protagonist, not as a revival, but as a philosophical landmine, turned Orb into required reading for anyone who loves stories that challenge perception itself. Number 4. Sudden tragedy. Look back. Few stories disarm audiences as effectively as Look Back. At first, it feels intimate and hopeful. A quiet coming-of-age tale about creativity, ego, and the fragile bond between two aspiring manga artists. Fujino is loud, competitive, and driven. Kyomoto is shy, reclusive, and impossibly talented. Together, they push each other forward. Their friendship becomes the emotional backbone of the story. And that's exactly why the twist hurts so much. After years of shared growth, Kyomoto makes a decision that feels like a betrayal. She chooses to attend an art university, leaving Fujino behind. The separation stings, but it feels real. The kind of heartbreak that comes with growing up. Fans were already emotional at this point, processing themes of jealousy, abandonment, and artistic insecurity. Then Fujimoto does the unthinkable. Without warning, Kyomoto is murdered. No build-up. No foreshadowing. No heroic sacrifice. A deranged man, convinced that the university plagiarized his work, commits a mass stabbing. Kyomoto is simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her life ends abruptly, violently, and meaninglessly. Readers were stunned. This wasn't a dramatic tragedy framed for emotional payoff. It was sudden, ugly, and brutally realistic. Just like Fujino, the audience is left frozen, unable to process what just happened. One page, Kyomoto exists. The next, she doesn't. What makes this moment hysteria-inducing isn't just shock. It's emptiness. There's no lesson neatly wrapped in grief, no reassurance that her death meant something. Fujino spirals into guilt, replaying every moment she could have acted differently. The story forces readers to sit with that same unbearable question. What if? Fans around the world reacted with raw emotion. Social media flooded with devastated reactions. Many admitted they had to stop reading and step away. Others praised Fujimoto for his courage in portraying senseless violence without romanticizing it. The scene sparked debates about art, responsibility, and how stories process real-world trauma. This wasn't a twist designed to entertain, it was designed to hurt honestly. Look Back became infamous overnight, not for spectacle, but for how accurately it captured the hollow aftermath of tragedy. The kind that doesn't resolve, the kind that lingers. For many fans, Kyomoto's death remains one of the most emotionally devastating moments in modern manga, because it feels terrifyingly possible. 3. The Great Reset. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Stone Ocean. If there's one franchise known for refusing to play it safe, it's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But even longtime fans weren't prepared for how far Stone Ocean would go. What begins as a prison break story slowly escalates into something cosmic. As Father Pucci's stand evolves into Made in Heaven, time itself starts to accelerate. Days pass in seconds, years blur into moments. Nature, technology, and humanity spiral forward uncontrollably. At first it's surreal, then it becomes horrifying. The acceleration doesn't stop, it doesn't stabilize, it keeps going, until the universe itself reaches its end. Stars burn out, reality collapses, and just like that, everything resets. Fans watching this unfold were losing their minds. This wasn't a metaphorical reset, this wasn't a dream sequence. The timeline we've followed for 6 parts, the Joestar bloodline, the characters we loved, the continuity we trusted, is gone, irreversibly. Yes, Pucci is ultimately defeated, but the damage is already done. Jolene Kujo, the protagonist fans had grown deeply attached to, no longer exists as she was. The world continues, but it's not our world anymore. The JoJo lineage we followed for decades ends, not with a bang, but with existential erasure. The fandom reaction was absolute chaos. Some called it genius, some called it unforgivable. Everyone argued. Message boards filled with grief and rage. Viewers debated whether this was the boldest narrative move in anime history or the cruelest. Ending a saga by destroying its universe felt like betrayal to some, and the perfect embodiment of JoJo's refusal to conform to others. What made the hysteria unavoidable was the permanence. There was no rewind button, no sequel undoing it, no comfort in familiarity. Stone Ocean didn't just end a story, it wiped the slate clean. And in doing so, it forced fans to confront a terrifying idea. Sometimes, even victory comes at the cost of everything you loved. 2. Bye Bye Mami. Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Up until this moment, Madoka Magica feels like a lie, a beautifully animated pastel-colored lie. The show presents itself as a classic magical girl story. Cute character designs, hopeful themes, sparkly transformations. Mami Tomo stands at the center of that illusion. She's confident, elegant, and powerful. The experienced mentor guiding Madoka and Sayaka into a world of heroism. She feels safe. She feels permanent. That's exactly why what happens next shattered anime fans worldwide. During a routine witch hunt, Mami shows off her overwhelming strength. She fights with grace, precision, and style, making it clear she's leagues above the others. Viewers relax. The danger feels manageable. The episode feels like it's reinforcing genre expectations. Then, without warning, the witch bites her head off. No slow motion, no heroic sacrifice, no last words. 1 second Mami is smiling, the next, she's gone. The silence afterward is deafening. Fans watching in real time didn't just gasp, they froze. This wasn't a dramatic death meant to inspire the heroes. It was sudden, cruel, and brutally final. The camera doesn't linger to soften the blow. The show moves on, leaving both the characters and the audience in shock. That single moment detonates the entire premise of the series. Suddenly, the cheerful art style feels sinister. Kyuubi's contracts feel predatory. The cost of being a magical girl is no longer abstract. It's lethal. Mami's death signals a tonal shift so violent that many viewers had to pause the episode just to process it. The fandom reaction was immediate hysteria. Social media exploded. Forums lit up with disbelief. People questioned whether they were still watching the same show. Many admitted they dropped the series temporarily, not because it was bad, but because it was too much. What makes Mami's death so infamous isn't just the shock, it's the betrayal of expectations. The show weaponizes the genre's tropes against the audience, using familiarity as a trap. From this point forward, Madoka Magica refuses to offer comfort. Every battle carries dread. Every smile feels fragile. And the audience understands one terrifying truth: no one is safe. Mami wasn't just a character, she was the warning shot. Bar 1. Instrumentality, the end of Evangelion. If you want to understand what happens when an audience pushes a creator too far, the end of Evangelion is the answer. After the original ending of Neon Genesis Evangelion aired, backlash was immediate and vicious. Fans sent hate mail. Some went as far as death threats. They demanded answers, closure, something more satisfying. What they got instead was instrumentality. This film does not comfort, it retaliates. From the opening minutes, everything unravels. Characters spiral into despair. Brutal violence replaces introspection. The world itself begins to collapse, not symbolically, but literally. The Human Instrumentality Project initiates, dissolving individual identities into a sea of shared consciousness. Everyone dies, or worse, everyone stops being themselves. Shinji's suffering reaches unbearable levels. Asuka's fate is horrific. Misato's death is sudden and cruel. Rei transcends humanity in a form that's haunting rather than divine. Giant, nightmarish imagery floods the screen as the boundary between reality, metaphor, and trauma completely dissolves. Fans were losing their minds. This wasn't an ending designed to please, it was confrontational, ugly, angry. The film dares the audience to look inward, to question escapism, obsession, and entitlement. And then comes the final scene. Shinji choking Asuka. Asuka's whispered response. Cut to black. No answers. No reassurance. Just discomfort burned permanently into anime history. The reaction was absolute hysteria. Some fans called it genius. Others called it unforgivable. Years later, debates still rage over what instrumentality means. That ambiguity is the point. Evangelion doesn't give closure, it gives reflection. This moment didn't just shock fans, it traumatized them. Instrumentality became the benchmark for anime that broke the fandom. A reminder that creators aren't obligated to soothe audiences, especially when audiences forget the line between passion and entitlement. You wanted an ending, you got one. So now we want to hear from you. Which of these anime moments sent you into full meltdown mode, and is there a scene you'll never emotionally recover from that didn't make the list? Drop your pics in the comments. If you enjoyed reliving the chaos, hit like. And subscribe for more anime moments that broke fans, shattered expectations, and rewired entire fandoms. We'll see you in the comments, emotionally damaged as always.